Hey guys, I wanted to do a little video about realism in video games. This is something that we're going to be discussing in the NLSC podcast this coming week, but I wanted to give a chance to get my YouTube people to have their voices heard in the comments. I figured the best way to talk about realism is by doing a fantasy game of the 77, 76, 76ers and the 99, 2000 Raptors. So let's go ahead and load this game up and let's get started. Now, when I'm talking about realism in video games, I'm not so much video games, but basketball video games. I'm not talking about the presentation elements. I'm not talking about specific animations. I'm not talking about outcomes. I'm not talking about stats. I'm talking about pretty much just straight up the whole bang and caboodle, if you will. I don't even know if that's the term for it. But everything to do with the game itself. So like that right there. We just had arms go through the we just had Dr. J's arm go through Vince Carter's arm. That is not realistic. But even if you just look at the way the players move, the way the players react, how it is still robotic-y, even though we've had so many years of improvements and fluidity. And I mean, if you guys play, I always thought that 2K7 was a pretty fluid game, but if you go back and play it now, it is so wonky and jerky and, you know, animation controlled, but still it's nothing compared to this. And there's still that lack of fluidity that's needed for a very realistic game. And as we know with 2K in the past, with the animations or the canimations and everything, it's very difficult. Oh, Dr. Dawkins. Oh my god, I know who he is, I'm sorry. But we know the difference between having a very animated or animation controlled gameplay versus having control. One thing that I need to, I keep bringing up and I need to mention again and again is when we saw that leaked NBA Live 13 video. He's not going to make that. Oh wow. And people were digging on EA for when the players, so let's say T-Mac just jacked up a shot right now. All other four players just said screw the rebound and they ran backwards into the backcourt to play defense. Now granted, when the user is playing, that isn't a very realistic thing to see. But in the NBA, if you watched, someone go down and just jack up a shot, half the time the players just run back and say, screw it, I'm not going for the O board. Maybe one or two, big guys will stay. But when I saw people ripping on that, it made me really start thinking about what's realistic in the game and what's not, and how does it translate to the video game, and having control and what the user wants out of the game. This is a very, very deep topic. I'm going to be rambling, I'm going to be ranting. So I'm going to apologize right now, with 46 seconds left in the first quarter for it. And, we're going to talk about it in hopefully a very big podcast this week in the NLSC. So as I'm jabbering away, some things I want you guys to think about while I'm talking about this. As we're entering the new generation of consoles, what we're seeing right now may as well be realism, or not so much realism, but completely realistic and lifelike in comparison to what we saw on the SNES or even the PS1 N64 era. I mean, the facial animations we have, all of the variety of animations we have, subtle differences like switching which side your feet, which way you're going to defend the player, the lead-in animations, all of this is very realistic, but as it looks, we still have transitions. There's no way that this animation system that 2K and EA uses can account for those transitions. You need something like Euphoria, which I know I keep talking about, and it's, people who know me I talk their ear off about Euphoria in the years past when I wanted going into this generation. And for those who don't know, Euphoria is a technology used by GTA and Backbreaker Football. And Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, I believe. So, I mean, that's the best way, in my opinion, on how to get really fluid animations that transition and behave realistically and collide with other players. And it's something that is just not really possible with this generation, because even in Backbreaker, a lot of the animations were rigid like these ones are. Nice play. Where even though we have... I'm just going to get a quick screen here. Someone screen me, please. Thank you. Oh, useless. But where it's too much data to try and have all 10 of these players collide with each other, and then the collision data from the stadium itself for the referees, for the backboard, for the Dornas and the ads and everything, the crowd if you kept running over there. I mean, all of that would have to have collision data for the players to run into, and that's not feasible with this technology. And I hope it's feasible going into the next generation, because we've had ragdoll physics for forever. But I should have just went in and dunked that. But we haven't really had a good application in a sports game. Backbreaker was very damn good for football and tackling, and the Infinity engine is pretty good. And I know that NHL and FIFA have good ones for collisions. But I'm talking about for general gameplay as well, where just running into someone like that would have a better collision animation than what we're seeing here. Because we're seeing an animation still play out. It's not organic. And it's pretty much impossible for it to be organic. We can have hundreds and dozens of variations of the animation to make it look more realistic, but it's not. Got cut towards the basket, Irving. Thank you. Oh, jam it on its... Oh. Duh. Funk. Yeah, it wasn't that clean. Still a nice dunk, though. I enjoyed it. So, I mean, looking at the animations, that's my whole... It just boils down to that. We still have the transitions. There's no real way for this technology to handle it. There needs to be an in-engine change to something that accounts for collisions properly, shifts some momentum, and all that fun. Where there has to be a rule of physics, if you will, in the game that all the players and their movement has to abide by. I didn't know what was going to happen there. I honestly don't know what I expected. And definitely not that to happen. And, you know, that's where Euphoria could help, because of awareness. But let's get off Euphoria. Basically what I want is... I want the game and the players to have to abide by the rule of physics defined by the game, so that a player can't have a jerky animation and get away with it. And that is something that 2K, I've always liked about 2K, when we have the live ball physics. It didn't matter if it's the player or the CPU running in, straight into a defender with that sprint dribble. If you hit the ball, in years past, it would definitely come loose. In years past, the one thing I've really loved about 2K is that a point guard could block... Oh my god. Board, please. A point guard could block a center if the timing was right, because his hand would hit the ball. As we know, this year, that kind of got effed with for balancing's sake, but that's my problem with video games. You're taking away a rule, and I really wish what we saw in the game was the rule, if you will, that decided if there's a block, or decided if there's that kind of ish. I guess is something I'm trying to say. Basically, that the players and the gameplay has to abide by the laws of physics, except for in the game, to account for movement and momentum and what's a block and what's not a block, collisions, and all of that fun stuff. But then you have the balance issues like that right there. I just did a half-court alley-oop, which failed miserably. And if you look at all of the top plays of people uploading to YouTube, you don't see a lot of half-court and long-distance alley-oops. But this year in the NBA, we've had so many with LeBron and Wade and everybody doing these long-range alley-oops from half-court. Ricky Rubio had a couple. I mean, that's game-breaking, because if you go online, how can you always defend that? That is something very, very difficult to defend. And you can just get eaten up for that online if someone's going to cheese it. So pretty much what I want is for ultra realism in this, kind of idea is I still want it to be exploits, because that's an exploit what LeBron and Wade do, throwing the damn ball halfway down the court while the defense is not paying attention. That is cheap. That is cheesy. That is smelly. And I guarantee you there are sim leagues where someone would get thrown out just for attempting it once. And yet, how many times did it happen this year? How many top plays did we see of long-distance alley-oops? But that's something that we can't really pull off in the game because it's not balanced. And that's BS to me. So that brings up another fun thing, and something that I've been very anti my entire career playing basketball video games, and that's sim basketball, baby. I am an arcade player. I make the Street mod, but I'm an arcade player in a realistic sense. I love NBA Street 1. I loved NBA Street Volume 2. I loved Home Court. I loved Volume 3. I loved Showdown on the PSP. I love NBA Jam. They're all very fun games. But that's the thing, they're fun. To me, the whole notion of having to play sim, having to say, oh, that drive I just did where I blew by the defender, well, it triggered that animation that's impossible for the defender to recover from, so I shouldn't have taken advantage of that and done a layup. Oh, I'm taking too many threes because my player is on fire. That's unfair, it's exploiting the game. That's not sim, baby. I mean, I've seen the rules that people have to abide by to play sim. And I'm not saying that you should exploit the game, but I find limiting yourself like that is not fun. And that's kind of what makes a good game or not a good game, if it could be exploited or not. Let's go back to Elite 11. One major exploit was that hook shots were money from the three-point line. Oh, get the board so I can cheese. It's going to make a great point there. Get the damn board! And that was a big problem in Elite 11 with hook shots going in from the three-point line and consistently. But at the same time, do I have anyone to acrobat? If you don't know the exploit... Oh, here's acrobat. Watch this. Watch Dr. J. I held the X button the entire time. And that will go in every single time from the three-point line. Every single time. That's an exploit. And if I'm playing sim, that's not sim, baby. And that's not realistic either. So I do have a problem with that. But the stuff like forcing yourself to do a, take a mid-range jumper instead of doing stuff like that, that's just BS to me. So let's do it again. It's so cheap. So when you look at gameplay, and I touched on it with the Live 13 leaked video. Get the ball. Oh, I want a fast break so bad with this team. Either the Dawkins or Dr. J. I'm sorry. When you're looking at the gameplay is not very realistic at all. Because if you look at the pacing of the game, it's pretty much downright terrible. The illusion I want you guys to look at is when you watch the playoff game tonight, or whenever you get to watch another basketball game. Try to think about if you were playing the game, or think about if you had a mocap of every player on the team, and you're watching a CPU. Let's say it's an online game that you're just spectating, and the action that you see on the screen is directly correlated to the game. It would look nothing like this. The way players accurately and inaccurately sag off the ball on defense or are lazy. People would be rip shit if they saw that in previews and trailers and regular gameplay after the game was released. People would lose their damn minds if the player didn't play like their contract was on the line every single game. And that right there is what I have a problem with. Well, among other things. That was cheap. But see, that's the thing, though. It's cheap, but it's not cheap in the game because it worked. In real life, that may not have worked because Dr. J would have been bumped. Or he would have been fouled. And you can't have too many fouls in the game on default. And I know I'm not playing on sim sliders and everything right now, but I mean, you catch my drift. The game has to have balance, and the game has to have. It has to be a game. It has to be fun. And there's a poll going on operations. Ooh. Am I going to see the replay of that? I am going to see the replay of that. Oh, mama. There goes that man. Let's get a nice screenshot of that sucker right there. And Dawkins right in the background. Perfect. There's a poll going on in Operation Sports. I think right now, if not, it was a couple weeks ago, that is about, does a more realistic game make it more fun or not? And I answered no. I don't think sim makes it better. I mean, simulation in the terms of actually replicating the sport, if it was possible, yes, that would be a lot more fun. And maybe I answered that wrong. But I took it to meaning as playing sim ball, like where you have the the rules, like you can't do that right there, and the different rules the players abide by. That's why I took it by. I'm going to lose this game, by the way. I don't give a crap. So it's just something to think about, that while this game, I'm playing basketball right now. If I use some basketball concepts like rotating the ball around, making smart passes, taking risky passes to get into the interior, and making the extra pass to get a wide open lane and a foul like that, I can use basketball tactics. But the players on offense and on defense, no matter what 2K and EA does right now, they are still so far from replicating what's going on the actual court when you watch the games on TV. So I don't know, just think about it. Post your thoughts in the comments. Like I said, I know it's rambly, I know it's ranty, it's a really deep topic, and considering my background, I'm not the one to really talk about it, but it is something I realized, and it's something I wanted to mention and have addressed by the community. Especially as we're about to start getting information on Live 14. Knowing that it exists is a great start to that information. And for 2K14 coming up soon. So I guess it's just you get to figure out what means more to you. Having a realistic playing game where what you see is governed by its own world of physics, and McGrady can't get away with the crap that I can't get away with. Like that right there. Did he just get through the... Nope, it wasn't a block. But if that ball warped through his hands and he got away with it, and when the user does, he can't. Because it's balancing. You got to think about having the same rules for both teams in terms of physics and everything else, and what's possible and not possible. You got to think about if having correct stats at the end of the game is worth restricting stuff like the blocking of dunks and layups in this game, which is, I guess, possible to do now, but very, very rare. Thinking about where that balance is between realism and forgetting the fact that you're playing a video game and you're supposed to be having fun. So, I don't know. Think about it. Think about what the developers can do to better replicate what we see on TV. Think about what technologies would be possible. Think about if it is even possible to do it with motion captured animations like right now, where there's blending between the animations, but it's still one animation leading to another animation. There's nothing procedural here. Do you think procedural animations like Backbreaker are the way to go? And needed for what I'm talking about, to fully replicate what we see on TV. So, just something to think about. I have a link in the description to the forum thread where you can share your ideas there. Share your ideas in the comments below. I will be sure to read them and most likely mention them during the big podcast coming up this week. And for more information on that, go to www.nba-live.com. Let's watch VC dunk on my face and rev that motorcycle a little bit. Oh, wow. So that's me getting my ass kicked in 2K13, talking about realism with a fantasy matchup that would never, ever happen. But that's why we play video games, right? Just to see what would happen, because I'm pretty damn sure that the Raptors wouldn't win like that, but whatever. Beyond the point, I've made my point, I think. Rambly and ranty, apologize for that, but I hope you guys will take the topic seriously. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next video.